Greetings, YouTube. I am called Modest Mike. Thank you for joining me today for a very special episode of Clearing the... Oh, fuck! God damn it! Can we get lights on, please? God damn it! Can we do this again with a fucking flashlight? No, not a flashlight. Look, I know I said fucking flashlight, but you know what I meant. Did you hear that? Yeah, it sounds like somebody's playing a piano. Can we get a fucking lockup here? I mean, what's wrong with fucking amateurs? Are we good? Okay. Let's try this again. Greetings, YouTube. I am called Modest Mike, and today it is my singular joy to present to you come the fuck on. Can we get House back up?
Look what she made me do.
Did you hear that? Jesus Christ. Yeah, can you ask them to cut that shit out? I'm trying to film a fucking intro here. Somebody mind telling me what the fuck is going on here?
Hey, wanna play hide and clap?
In 2013, The Conjuring scared the living shit out of audiences across the country and laid the foundation for a plethora of other paranormal horror movies set within the same cinematic universe, including a sequel by the same name, The Nun, The Curse of La Llorona, and a trio of Annabelle movies ranging from pretty fucking scary to outright laughable. Based on a true story, we're gonna cover this loosely fucking based. This is one of my favorite horror movies to have come out within the past decade. It's incredibly well paced, builds to a satisfyingly horrific climax, and the cinematography is head and shoulders above other films in the genre. But before I can get into the story and the details and the nitty-gritty, I feel it's important to explain a bit about the two key players in this particular story, namely Ed and Lorraine Warren. But for that, I will defer to my good friends over at Camp Nightmare. Take it away, gentlemen.
Hey, I'm Jordan.
Hey, I'm JB.
We host the podcast Camp Nightmare, and apparently we are your horror correspondents.
Experts, you might say.
Ed and Lorraine Warren. They were pioneers in the world of paranormal investigation, but maybe they weren't as purely altruistic as the movies portrayed them.
Yeah, while they were pioneers, they were also super business-minded.
And after all, that is the American way.
And let's be real, ghostbusting doesn't always pay the bills.
The first and most infamous haunting that the Warrens were involved in was the Amityville Horror.
For those of you unfamiliar with the Amityville Horror, seriously, you're watching this and you've never seen the Amityville Horror? Okay, it goes like this. George and Kathy Lutz buy a house in the super cheap in Long Island, a place called Amityville. First of all, if you're in Long Island and they're that close to New York City and there's a house that cheap, maybe do some research and find out whether or not there's a Native American burial ground under your house first, you stupid fuck. Turns out, Ronald DeFeo Jr. one night murders entire goddamn family with a shotgun.
And after all this, the Warrens were invited to spend the night in the house months after the Lutz evacuated the house in the middle of the night because of the hauntings.
So in the televised investigation, the Warrens convinced the court that DeFeo killed his entire family from demonic activity, contributing directly to this guy getting off on a plea for insanity. So hey, way to be, Warrens.
As we all know, the Amityville Horror is pop culture. Ryan Reynolds played this guy in a movie.
Van Wilder, y'all.
So this skyrocketed the Warrens into the stratosphere of paranormal investigators.
Part of that, though, was that all of a sudden they became the subject of a whole lot of speculation, but they ended up kind of turning it around in their favor and using it to just launch themselves into infamy and give all sorts of like spoken word sessions for lots of money to really stupid people.
But honestly, can you blame them? If you're gonna go see a lecture, I want to go see one about how you hunted a ghost last week.
I want to see a lecture about how Ryan Reynolds played somebody.
Ed and Lorraine Warren went on to investigate tons of stories of ghosts, demons,
many.
the like. But for many skeptics, just their involvement casts a shadow of doubt on the whole investigation.
The haunting of the Perron family in Rhode Island was one of these cases. You may remember it as the documentary The Conjuring.
That was a documentary, correct?
I believe so.
Yes,
yeah.
by famous documentarian James Wan.
Yep. I believe started with the Saw documentaries.
Yes, that was a good one.
Indeed. The current owner of the farm, Norma Sutcliffe, is a little pissed off about maybe Hollywoodizing the story just a little bit. You ever been to Rhode Island? Everything is haunted in Rhode Island, but I digress.
According to Norma, Bathsheba, the evil witch who murders her children, hangs herself, and proceeds to haunt the family, was actually just a cranky old woman who had a stroke, died, and was buried outside the house.
Boring! Guess what, kids? That's why Norma Sutcliffe doesn't make movies.
Sutcliffe even went so far as to sue Warner Brothers Studios for the popularization of her home and having to deal with tourists coming to her house, hoping to see ghosts.
Once again, everything is haunted there.
The ghost tour stops at every single house.
Literally, all of them.
So this isn't uncommon. This is a classic case of Hollywood sensationalizing reality to make a more interesting story, sell tickets, and put meat in seats.
Oh, JFK.
It's no surprise that they picked Ed and Lorraine Warren as the faces of paranormal investigation to be the brand that the Conjuring universe was based on.
I don't think the Warrens are bad people.
No.
I think they're fucking capitalists.
Yeah.
James Wan isn't a bad person. He just found a way to take a story that was meh and make it amazing. It's not a Wait, it's not a documentary?
Oh, I thought it was a documentary.
Hold on, folks. We're here. It's not a document. Well, that changes my entire view of this.
Oh my god, are they frauds now?
I'm...
So can we really blame James Wan for taking a story, exaggerating it, and trying to do the best and scariest movie he can?
No!
I don't think so. This is not a documentary.
It's escapist cinema, mutants. Get over it.
Jordan and JB out.
Thanks, fellas. Keep up the good work on the podcast. Really appreciate you helping out. The movie starts with this scene.
It started out small, like a hand or a leg was in a different position, then its head was looking up instead of down, and then one day it was in a completely different room.
Which is dumb, for reasons we'll get into later. But it only seems to set up this scene, which introduces Ed and Lorraine Warren, and then subjects the audience to the only thing I hate more than spoken exposition: scrolling exposition. This ain't fucking Star Wars, and you ain't fucking George Lucas. Anyway, Carolyn and Roger Perron arrive in their new home in Harrisville, Rhode Island, with their dog and 5 daughters in tow. And right away, weird fuckery is afoot. The dog won't cross the threshold into the house. The youngest finds a creepy music box in the backyard, and the family discovers a boarded up entrance into a spooky murder cellar, complete with spooky murder cellar piano. The next morning, Carolyn wakes up with nasty bruises. All of the clocks have mysteriously stopped at 3:15, and their dog Sadie is dead. Childhood innocence. Then this scene wastes about 5 minutes of screen time, so Patrick Wilson can repeat information thoroughly covered in the first scene and introduce a totally superfluous character. Then back to the spoopy stuff. You know, the stuff we actually give a fuck about. And then there's more pointless pathos with Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Do you remember what you said to me on our wedding night?
Can we do it again?
After that.
And back to the spoopy, glorious spoopy. Oh, look at this wonderful spoopy. I love it. It's so good. Oh my god. Fuck, man, this movie makes my skin crawl and I love it. Finally, fed up with all the spooky shit, Carolyn seeks out the help of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and Ed could not be more nonplussed.
You don't understand.
Oh, but we do. There's usually some sort of rational
I have 5
explanation.
daughters who are scared to death.
Pretty much tells her to go fuck herself. But Lorraine, who might be more of an empath than a psychic or a medium or whatever the hell this movie claims she is, I don't know. I don't care. Lorraine senses this woman's desperation and insists that they go have a look.
Of course we will. Of course we will.
Now that the Warrens are involved, the spoopy shit gets ramped up, and I love the fuck out of it. So in a nutshell, the Warrens are essentially brought in to collect evidence to present to the Vatican so that they can apply for an exorcism, which can take as long as a few months. But given how fucked things are at the Perron house, Ed is forced to conduct an exorcism on Carolyn, who is possessed by the malevolent spirit of a witch, Bathsheba. Great name for a witch. But it's Lorraine who really saves the day here, using the power of positive thinking?
Remember that day that you said you would never forget? This is what you'll be leaving behind.
Anyway, happy endings are had by all. Aw, isn't that nice? Happy ending. It's always good for a horror movie to have a happy ending when you're making a franchise. Things I liked. The spoopy never got stupid. Now, this is something I feel happens a lot in modern horror movies. The first and second acts are pretty strong. There's a lot of creepiness to go around and enough story to string it all together. And then somewhere in the third act, everything takes a left turn into what the fuck is happening town. A good example of this is in It Follows, when the kids decide that they're going to save their friend from this apparition by electrocuting it in a swimming pool. I believe my distaste for this kind of climax has something to do with the confrontation of a supernatural entity by means of a conventional method. Like, the whole thing that makes it scary is that you can't just shoot it in the face with a gun. It detracts from a lot of the things that appeal to me about horror, which is why I'm glad the filmmakers in this instance chose to have an exorcism during the climax of this movie. With Ed Warren, no less, is the perfect choice because the stakes are super high. Ed, while an experienced demonologist and paranormal investigator, professes that he is out of his depths in the realm of exorcism. But the situation forces his hand.
Put her down! Put her down! Put her down!
Give that fella a gold star. Good writing. Also, the kids do a pretty damn good job acting in this movie. And I mean that in all sincerity. Good child actors are hard to come by. And these girls, man, they all do a fucking amazing job. Especially the little one.
You're my friend, right? Yeah, let's play.
Now, let's talk about cinematography. I mean, this is something that horror movies are getting better and better at, but it's totally worth mentioning. There's a cool one-shot executed near the beginning of the movie that gets used a lot in the other movies set in the Conjuring universe. They have smooth and imaginative moves like this. And that's sort of a mixed bag. I feel it can help and hurt a story. Since the move is pretty noticeable, it can pull the audience out of the immersive experience the movie is intending to create. But this shot here is something very special. It's a classic voyeur shot, giving the impression that someone or something is watching the subjects in the shot from a distance. Love this kind of cinematography because it's immersive without being obtrusive. It's effective at conveying so much with so little. Bravo, bravo, bravo. In this instance, this is a story about a haunted house, and it almost gives the impression that the house itself is watching them. But of course, there were some things I wasn't a big fan of. The whole thing with Judy and Annabelle, which I will cover in the next segment in much greater detail. I get that the point of this scene was to set up the cinematic universe wherein Annabelle and the Warrens and even the spoopy nun lady exist, but is it necessary to devote this much screen time to a side story that really has no fucking bearing on what is actually happening? This fella thinks not.
Hey, I hope you don't mind. Got a good deal on a rebuild at that wrecking yard in Smithfield.
Ah, you look like you know what you're doing.
This fucking conversation where Ed is working on Roger's car because he's an everything man who can do it all. Obviously. Ed gets all Freddy foreshadowy and more or less beats the audience over the head with the same shit he's been saying all fucking movie.
Whatever Lorraine sees, feels, touches, it helps people, but it also takes a toll on her. A little piece each time. A couple months ago, we were working on a case. It took a real big piece.
Fuck, Ed, we get it. You're worried about your wife. We all are. You don't need to tell us how dangerous all this is, okay? But everyone's fine. Everything's okay in the end. I'm just saying, it would have been better if it was actually foreshadowing something that happened.
She possessed the mother to kill the child. She visits Carolyn every night. That's what the bruise marks are. She's feeding off of her.
Can we talk for a second about how weird Lorraine Warren is in this?
What's this, do?
Oh, when there's an instant drop in temperature, a thermostat triggers the camera to take a picture.
You actually caught things on film?
Well, yeah, that's the point.
How offstandish Ed is. And these are our protagonists? Sure, they have moments of levity, but when he's not talking to his wife, Ed's kind of a dick. Am I the only one who feels just a little bit like Vera Farmiga played Lorraine like a doddering old woman? I suppose it could be due to the fact that Lorraine Warren was still alive when the movie was made, and the actress actually got to talk to her and do a little character study, but maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I just kind of feel like she actually captures a bit of that weird old lady energy.
So,
Oh my God, look at you all. Who are these beautiful young women?
it's Andrea, the oldest, Nancy, Cindy, Christine, and April.
Which doesn't exactly work for a character who's supposed to be in their 30s or 40s. And now here we go. Things I would have changed. Hear me out. I'm just some asshole on the internet talking about shit that's really not relevant anymore. So follow me down this rabbit hole, because it's gonna be twisty. I've been bitching about this all episode, so here it is. You don't need the Annabelle thing. You don't. The Warrens don't even need to be in this movie until Carolyn comes to ask for their help. They waste all of this screen time on characters that the story isn't really about. This is about the Perron family haunting. So maybe your protagonist should be Roger and Carolyn, or one of the 5 daughters who this shit is actually happening to. Making Ed and Lorraine the focus of this film feels an awful lot like what the Warrens did in real life, which was to distort the facts to fit a more compelling narrative. It kind of fucks me up that the Perron family is just sort of swept to the side as the protagonists of the story, because they're the ones who all this is fucking happening to. The Warrens are more like Dr. Van Helsing in the Dracula narrative, who are brought in as knowledgeable allies to help the protagonist overcome the machinations of a supernatural antagonist. The story would benefit from a little more time and attention given to Roger and Carolyn's characters. The most we get from them is a little pathos here, a couple giggles there, but mainly they exist as a device which leads the antagonist, Bathsheba, to its eventual showdown with the protagonists, Warrens. And it kind of leaves the ending a little flat. How exactly would I like to have seen the Perrons humanized? I don't know. Maybe just spend a little bit of that time making the audience empathize with Roger and Carolyn instead. But whatever, you know? All of this is just my opinion. Thank you, JV and Jordan, again, for making a contribution to this episode. Check out their podcast, Camp Nightmare, on iTunes, Spotify, other places you get podcasts. Follow them on Twitter. Follow them on Instagram. They are funny fucking dudes, and talented motherfuckers. I love them, goddammit. Playing the key theme song and other original music used in this episode was written and recorded by my good friend Chuck Miller. You can find a link to his SoundCloud in the information below. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Stick around, because I got more opinions about stuff, and I'm probably gonna share them with you if you wanna hear them. Probably even if you don't, because that's the kind of person I am. You try and stop me, but you can't.